Hello. Well, this is Fire Raven 80, and what I'm doing here is I'm setting up I'm showing what I play for Star System, what I use, how I set up my streaming computers, and everything for it. A lot of guys on Discord ask me these questions. They ask me how my FPS is pretty good. Comparatively, it seems like most of the time to theirs. So here, this is the first screen right here. So this is the full setup. So I do have three computers that I play on. So um, uh, this 58X3D with the 3080, this is my primary gaming computer. It's the one I use to play everything and record from. So I send the information from this computer to another one and record. It's got an X570. I've got 64, well, it says 65, but it should be 64 megabytes of RAM, 3600, and I have four M2 drives that are 1 gigabyte apiece. The second computer that is only used for gaming and recording from is this second, and it's probably
There we go. Buddy, how you
right here.
doing?
Oh, here's Cax.
Yeah,
Hey, what's up, Cax? Making a video, bro. Making a video about computer specs right now. I'm broadcasting live, so
Right on.
I was just doing a run through of my setup, what I'm running, so that way people know what to expect from what they've seen on my Star Citizen videos,
Uh-huh.
what exactly I'm using to get that, because a lot of people were saying they're not getting nowhere near close to that. So I'm kind of doing a rundown of my systems and what they do
Yeah.
and how I get it.
If you need help making the video, I can narrate for you. Step one, have rich parents. If you don't have rich parents, have rich grandparents. The end.
There you go. Okay, that facts check out. He's good. We're good. All right. So the second computer, which it says the third test right here, this is the one other primary gaming computer that I record from. So this computer does not do recording itself, and it doesn't even have a microphone except the headset hooked to it. This one is for my second account that is always around, and this has got the 5800X, and it's got a 6700 XT. We got should be 50 gigs of RAM. That's what it says. It says this, but it should be 50. And I don't know why those numbers are off. Again, we got X570. This one has this is just showing the boot drive. So this has a 500 gigabyte boot drive, and then it's got three additional 1 terabyte NVMe drives on it for game space and for local recording on that machine. And then my third machine, which is this one, which is the 5800X. It's got a 3080, and this one does have a weaker motherboard, and the reason why is because of the Wi-Fi setup, the way that I got everything linked together. It needs to be able to connect that way. But this computer is about to get a new B550 motherboard for it. It's also Wi-Fi. It's gonna upgrade that board a little bit. I'm not gonna see a difference. I couldn't see a difference between my B450 and my X570, to be honest, other than overclocking. This one only has 32 gigs of RAM. It's got this small disk drive or NVMe drive, and that is for the operating system only. And then it's got an additional three M2 1 terabyte drives in it for storage. And it's got a 500 gigabyte SSD that these two gaming computers directly record to, and then I wipe that as soon as I get done editing those videos and putting them on. It's got 3200 speed, and it's got 32 gigs of RAM. This one basically is for broadcasting, encoding, decoding videos, and making videos. That's all this computer's for. this 5800X made a big difference in editing videos compared to the 5600X that it previously had in it. So I just upgraded it and called it a day. And then it also has a 3080, and the reason is for the encoders, for streaming, and for the just to kind of match the best of the streaming cards that you can get. This 6700 XT, I'm flat out telling you, there is no difference in gameplay. As far as raw gameplay goes for Star Citizen, World of Warships, any game that I have ever played, I could play it on these two computers side by side. And as far as video cards go, there is no distinct difference. I cannot tell a difference with them. As far as actual gameplay, the processor does add more frames between the two. The 58X is way better. So this is the stats from the Firestrike, and we're going to go through all the other ones that I've recently ran over the last couple of days. So again, you know, according to this, it's the 3080, 12 gig. It beats everything, except, shockingly, this 3080, 10 gig does beat in the physics score, and it does beat in physical, but it loses in every other category. And of course, the AMD is, according to this, it's not very close, but it's way closer than you think. If you play on it, you wouldn't. My buddy actually uses this rig when he comes over for LAN, and he loves it. He actually thinks it's better than the other ones. So it's just dealer's choice there. The reason why this isn't my streaming PC is because AMD just does not have good encoders for the streaming. So I gotta just use the best one that I can get. So we're gonna go to more comparisons here. So we're gonna do the shader, which we're gonna clear this. So now we're gonna look at mesh shaders. And this is not gonna be a huge, coming out, you know, I'm not reinventing the wheel here. So again, for some odd reason, this computer, with this mesh shaders off, it did not do very good at all. These two computers, I mean, you're talking 10 frames, but this is the AMD. I mean, the AMD just mesh shaders off, it's fell flat on its face. But these two, they're the same. But it's weird because this is the 12 gig card, this is the 10 gig card, and the 10 gig card wins, but it just runs out of VRAM and Star Citizen in certain games. So, and then you have your shaders on, and of course 360, 500, 20, there is a big difference there between those two cards. Again, this one winning, even though it's a 10 gig card. The only thing I can think of is the processor speed. That's it. But the difference between the shaders on and off is 900% for this particular video card, which is the 66XT. And these were all just made. So we're just going to move on from there. I'm trying not to make this video too long. But, so that's that. Then we got the shaders. I did one for Firestrike Extreme. So we're going to clear all that. We're adding, and I should have a Firestrike Extreme for this. Yes, there we go. I thought I did them all for every single one of them that I'm going to show here. So this one, again, now we have wins for the 12 gig. I mean, it's just a solid win for that 3080 12 gig. 10 gig took physics score, and physics test. The weird thing is, here's that 6700 XT, which if anybody knows the difference in cost between a 3080 and a 6700 XT, it's a pretty big chunk difference there. And you know, while there's a 4,000 difference there on the score for some odd reason, it's right. I mean, that's going to be the 4,000 score, but for everything else, it actually beat the 12 gig 3080. It lost to the 10 gig 3080, and you know, the combined score, of course, fell down because it has this one score that's a little bit so much lower. But you go into frames, you know, 115, 88, 110, 81, 66, 78. Physics test, 91, 94, 112. That's not, you know, a whole lot of headroom there. It's not a lot of not a lot of difference for the cost. You know, you lose 10 frames combined, but I'm not seeing that huge loss. You know, this is your 10 frame, you know, 20 frames there, 10 frames there. But again, it's half the cost. It's half the card. I do love the 16 gigs. I love that 6700 with the higher RAM. Now we're gonna clear that off. We're gonna go back to some more results. So we did, Speedway. Speedway is gonna be a good one. So that's the one I just ran on that particular computer. So now we gotta go find, and CPU profile, I could show it. 5800X, it says dominates, or 5900X, it says dominates. It's just a bigger processor than the other two and has higher clock speeds. There's just no, it's not even close. Even to the 5800X 3D, it's just not even close. They're just dominating difference there. We will do the time spy, just regular time spy one. But, so here's your comparison here. So again, this is primary gamer, secondary gamer, and video rendering computer that I do play on from time to time, just not whenever I'm streaming. Sometimes you need a third account. And it says valid result no on this particular card, and the reason why is the driver for this just came out today and I updated it. So that has a brand new driver from AMD on it that's not accepted by 3D Mark yet. So again, we're going 3D Mark score. Yeah, there's a pretty good difference there. Pretty good difference there. Pretty good difference there. And that's going to match up. This card costs half as much. It should be half the card. It's way cheaper. These cards are way more expensive than this card. But those are not what I would consider huge drops or bad numbers. This is actually, the 6700 XT actually is cooler. And, you know, we got 12 gigs of RAM, 12 gigs of RAM. I thought this one had more, but it's a 12 gig card. So, clock speed's higher. Memory free, it's higher. Your average memory clock during the test it's higher there. So this card's a little bit more snappier than people give it credit for, and for the price, you just can't beat it. All right, now we're going to go to the very last thing, and that's going to be just the regular time spy set of numbers. And
Wow, yeah,
38, and then where's the 58X 3D? There we go, time spy. So this is the last set of numbers. And again, this is a smaller processor than the other two, so that does have some effect to this, and it's It's the way cheaper card, but to me it just runs smoother. I'd rather have smoothness than anything else. So for the 3D Mark score, we got, you know, those two are within 2 points. With the 12 gig one in there. Graphics score, 100 points. And a little change again for the 12 gig. FPS, or CPU score, which is kind of weird. You know, again, we got a bigger CPU there without a doubt. These two just are identical, just one has 3D cache and one doesn't. Graphics test is the lowest. Looks like 30 and 40 at the top end. Right here, 30 at the second, and then right here, see, this one takes it for average, for 40, and that's the 10 gig 3080. So you got your average 2.15 frames, or 3 frames basically. 1 frame there. Not gonna miss two and 1 frames, people. Your brain isn't gonna compute that. I don't care how great you are. Your brain just isn't gonna keep up with that. Now, the last thing is monitors. So this rig runs an LG high-end gaming monitor. It goes up to 200 megs, and then it also has a secondary monitor that goes up to 144. So they have to match in order to keep them the same. So they're set in sequence and the same everything, but they are 2 different brands. But I like my secondary monitor being what that one is, because it has the blue relief on the eye, so I can read from that monitor and not get eye fatigue. This one runs an LG ultra wide, and again, you know, I love this setup. It was way cheaper. Did not take very much to build at all. And then my streaming setup runs 2 bezel-less Samsungs. So that way I can mount them together and it looks just like one big screen. So those are sitting side by side touching, and it looks like one giant screen, and all my streaming stuff is just drug across the small boxes all across both screens, so I can see everything at once whenever I look over at that computer. So this is my gaming setup that I use. This for World of Warships. World of Warships doesn't care. You can run a Pentium 3 and a Potato as a graphics card, and that thing will still run. Star Citizen though, the one thing I've noticed is extremely CPU intensive, and it is extremely RAM intensive. This particular computer runs about 40 gigs on whenever I run Star Citizen, and not very much in the background. And this computer will burn through 40 gigs of RAM. This one, it doesn't ever cap out on RAM, even when I'm playing a game, playing Star Citizen on it. Even when I'm video editing it, it's always CPU limited, and the encoder for video rendering is the limit on this computer. This computer, you know, the RAM usage actually on this one is low. Even in Star Citizen, it doesn't run a lot, but the settings on this one has to be turned down for Star Citizen, because for some odd reason it will not, it's not frames, it's heat. For some odd reason the card just starts getting hot really bad on the very high setting. So this one's just set on high setting for Star Citizen, and I've never figured out why. That's got to be some type of driver conflict there. But I have literally, in 3.18, I think it was, the first day of a new patch, I literally watched this computer thermal restart from Star Citizen. Just literally turned it on and loaded the game and never left the station, and then 15 minutes later, the video card had to shut down because of the heat. And whenever I looked at the in-game tools to see what frame rates and everything was, it was steady. I checked the computer, fans were blowing full blast, nothing was conflicting. You know, the air actually coming out of the CPU was cool. It wasn't super hot, but it was the junction temperature for some odd reason got extremely hot and kept hitting that thermal warning of shutdown. You need to shut this down, you need to shut it down. And I did, and I played around with it. I sent them all the data. They did some type of hot fix over the next day. And then I got an email from them saying, hey, we looked into that. You were on to something. There was something going on about the junction on AMD graphics cards that was not jiving for that patch. So I have never turned it back up since then. I was running on very high for a long time with no issues and no frame problems. But for that one patch, it just gave me that warning, and I'm like, I'm not gonna melt a card in an alpha game because something in their software is screwing with the driver. And that clearly was on their side. It was the newest AMD driver, and it was just from that patch. It was only for one day. They did the hot fix on the server side. It wasn't even a downloadable patch fix for the players. And once I got the email, I did turn it up to very high temporarily. I played the game for like 2 hours on it. Never happened again. And then I flipped it back down to high. And I said, well, it didn't happen again, but it's never going to happen again either. Because this is now a warning to me from CIG that, hey, we screw up some code sometimes on graphics cards that definitely will cause some type of compatibility junction issue there with that card, with AMD cards. So that's just a shocking thing that's the only problem that I've ever had with this card. These two cards, one's a PNY, one's an ASUS. No overheating problems, be exact. They've been gaming all day long. The fans barely kick on, but I'm running liquid cooled on every system, so that's the other factor. They all have got liquid cooling. This one has a 360 mil. These two are on 240s. And they're all different brands of liquid coolers because I test a lot of equipment. And I build stuff for people, and I try to find deals, but I want to make sure that the equipment that I'm going to say, hey, this is some good stuff and it's not super expensive, is actually what it is. So this one I'm currently running. This is the newest thermal cooler that I have. This one's an Intermax 360, and I'll tell you, it's definitely quiet, super quiet. I have no problems with the cooler. I can feel the heat coming out of the radiator, blowing out, and the pump, it's not even audible. I touch it and I know it's working. I can touch the lines and feel the hot and the cold side. So really nice cooler. And this one has, as I'm looking, this one has a Thermaltake 240 RGB, which I turned the RGB off. I don't care about that. And that was actually the cooler that I took off of this one. And it's a great cooler. It's quiet. It's actually sitting right by the microphone, and you can't hear it. You can't hear that entire computer. And that computer's literally sitting, I'd probably say a good 8 inches, 9 inches away from the microphone. You probably might be able to hear the back fan, but that'd be about it. This computer runs a Corsair 240, but it's running an H100i from, I think it was probably 2016, 2017. This particular computer I put together from parts that I had sitting in a closet that I never used. And I just was like, man, I could build a computer out of all this stuff. I actually can, because everything's sitting right here. and I threw you know, a Corsair power supply in it, and threw it's a X570 motherboard, but this is the one. This is the older one. This one is the S, so it's the newest one. This is the older one that I never used, and I plugged it in there. All these NVMe drives that I threw in it were all just sitting in the closet. And the only thing I can think of is it was just spare parts that I had. The case was a NZXT white case, and the RAM was, everything was brand new. Corsair RAM, it was all brand new in the package. And that's the other deal. So this one has 3200 speed, 3200 speed, and then 36. This is the only one with 3600 RAM. These two are 32s. But that's really the only difference that I have between all of my computers. I played this game 4, 5, 6 hours at a time during the day, especially on Fridays when my friends come over and we all play together, and they use these computers. And honest to goodness playing, you're never going to see a difference between them. They're all so close. The only limiting factor is the game itself. There's just certain areas that your frames are going to suck, whether you're running a 3080, 4080, 4090, 3090, it doesn't matter. Your frames are just going to die there. CPU load, it uses a lot. It definitely is a CPU devouring beast. RAM, I definitely say 24 gigs. You definitely need 24 gigs or more RAM to play Star Citizen very well. That definitely is a limitation that I've seen. I pulled sticks out of both of these two computers, or no, this one and this one. I've lowered the RAM count down on both of them, and I've hit that RAM limit. And then I had to put the RAM sticks back in because you could just notice that the game started stalling out. Here, that computer kind of kick up, but that's this one, and that's the fans off the liquid cooler. It has since it's an old H100i, it kind of sits for a little while, and the fans actually don't spin. And then now the fans just kicked on, and it'll run for about a minute, 2 minutes, and then it'll turn the fans off again, and they won't run again for 20. So that's just the liquid cooler on that one started getting a little warm, and it's time for it to cycle some air through it. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna shut this off. I'm gonna upload this video to YouTube. I hope this helps. That's a 30-minute mark, so that's where I want to be. Talk to y'all later. Bye bye.